Welcome to T2T Boxing in association with IFL TV and Macklin's Gym Marbella. Here with me I have Justin FITZGERALD, trainer of SAKIO BIKA. Thanks for joining me. SAKIO just got his media day underway, some sparring going on with Mark Flanagan, a few other lads in there. Big fight just been announced. What are your thoughts on that fight and what are your thoughts on SAKIO's chances?
The fight coming up with ADONIS STEVENSON, it was a little bit surprising, but it's like a wish come true for SAKIO and even myself. He's wanted to fight ADONIS STEVENSON for quite a while now, and the fact that it's for his WBC belt and that SAKIO could possibly win another WBC belt in another division, it's a huge fight. And being in Canada in front of Adonis's crowd, it's a massive fight. It's got big ramifications. Yeah.
Stylistically, what are your thoughts on how that fight's going to pan out, say with SAKIO? We all know the last couple of his fights have been full of action, certainly. Is that something that we're going to see more of? Or we're going to see a return to maybe slightly more cautious boxing from SAKIO?
No, well, there'll definitely be a game plan, going into the fight. But the fact is, Adonis is a southpaw. He's got the long arms. He likes to use that reach, use the jab and get guys onto his left hand. So because he's powerful that way. But I don't think he's the best in fighting in close. I don't think he's been tested too much in that regard. And with SAKIO's rugged and awkward style and his strength, I think part of the plan will be to take Stevenson somewhere where he hasn't been. And that's probably not to box him from the outside and be on the end of Adonis's punches, but more to get in close and to work him over. Something similar to what SAKIO did with Dirrell in the first fight, up close, just ripping into his body and head and making it rough and awkward and tough for him. So that would be part of the plan, but there'll be things that we'll work on over there in St. Louis with Kevin Cunningham, and we'll get him ready for it. Okay, and you mentioned the Dirrell fight there. Now that's a fight that's been widely viewed in Australia. A few people criticised SAKIO for the way he went around the fight, and Dirrell, and the way that fight panned out. And what were your thoughts ringside? What are your thoughts on, say, what SAKIO didn't do right and say what he did do right? First of all, the training camp, we had 7 weeks in St. Louis, and as far as his training, he was in top shape. He was applying the game plan with his sparring partners. He was doing everything pretty much right. But what happened was in the dressing room before the Dirrell fight, I know SAKIO as well as anyone. I've been helping and working with him for 15 years now, and I noticed that he seemed off, he seemed flat, just his movements, his demeanour. For whatever reason it was, I can't tell, and then the fight showed that he wasn't quite there. He even said his legs were heavy, he couldn't get off, Plus, of course, the opponent makes you do things sometimes that you don't want to do, or they throw you off. That plays a part, but he definitely was off, and he couldn't apply the game plan, to the best of his ability. So he was off. He looked off to me, and unfortunately, he didn't fight to his best, and he lost the fight. But you can't change that.
And now we're moving on. We've got the light heavyweight title shot, say with Adonis. Is a move to light heavy something that is going to stay with SAKIO, or will we see him drop back down to super middle if, say, another title becomes available? What's the plan there?
Definitely, I think it's the big fights, wherever the big fights are. Obviously, if he wins the WBC light heavyweight, well, he's got to stay and he'll defend it as much as he can. But in saying that, whatever happens, it's about big fights for SAKIO. If it's at super middle or light heavyweight, he'll go up and down if he has to. That's the gist of it.
Perfect. And with that light heavyweight division comes some very dangerous fighters. We were just seeing Kovalev and Hopkins at the tail end of last year. It's got Jean Pascal who's fighting Kovalev. Would a fight with either any of those guys, would that be something of interest to SAKIO and a man as dangerous as Kovalev?
Absolutely. SAKIO will fight anyone. He's wanted to fight all the big guys, from the Chavez to Froch to those guys at super middle. He wanted to fight Hopkins at light heavy, but that probably would never happen. But guys like Kovalev, he'll fight. Jean Pascal, he'll fight them in a heartbeat. So it's those guys he wants, and he will fight, whether it's super middle or light heavyweight, doesn't matter.
All right, excellent. And looking back at that super middleweight division, obviously one you'd studied pretty well with SAKIO being in it for so long. What are your thoughts on both the Dirrells potentially facing British opponents in James DeGale and George Groves? What are your thoughts on those fights, and I suppose the division as a whole? Who do you think are the sort of standout fighters left in the super middleweight division? I
think the guys you mentioned, the British guys, DeGale, he's definitely thereabouts, with a performance or two. If he fights Dirrell, Anthony Dirrell, for me that's a fight that could go either way. They're both very good boxers themselves, so again it's 50-50 to me. Froch is still there. You know, he's almost the man at super middleweight. You know, it has been for a while. But Andre Ward coming back, no one knows what's going to happen there. But Andre Dirrell, he's got all the potential in the world, and it just depends on him wanting the fights and fighting regularly. You know, so I think with the couple of American guys there and the British guys, you know, they're the future in the next few years of the super middleweights.
Excellent. And then so back to Sakio. What are your thoughts on this fight? I know you've got a good camp lined up off to St. Louis tomorrow. Without giving too much away, how are we going to see that fight pan out? How are we going to see that fight end?
Well, we've got off tomorrow to training camp for another 6 weeks in St. Louis, working again with Kevin Cunningham. So we're just going to get to work like we always do, just get off the plane, a little rest, and then straight in the gym. I honestly see the fight. Sakio is on his game. He will make it rough and tough for Stevenson and take him somewhere he's never been. You know, he'll just fight him differently to most of the other guys who fought Stevenson, and he'll take it to the trenches. And I think maybe later in later rounds he'll keep working on Stevenson, and it's up to Stevenson how much he'll want to take.
Perfect. Excellent. We'll wish you both the best of luck. Have a great camp, and we'll obviously catch up with you closer to the time. Speak to you then.
Thanks,
mate.
Thanks.
Cheers.